Get ready, Hoosier fans. This is the Hoosier Tailgate, where passion meets football. We're breaking down the biggest stories, bold predictions, and insider insight on Indiana football and beyond. Whether it's game day strategy, recruiting buzz, or the latest hot takes, we've got you covered. Grab your spot at the tailgate. The Hoosier Tailgate starts now.
And picked off up the sideline. Indiana, Asbury, walking them down. Woo! IU, America, they got a football team now.
Hello again, everybody. I'm the Coach Shannon Griffith, and welcome to Game Week here on the Hoosier Football Tailgate, all on the Hoosier.com. Remember, in season, we do 2 a week. Mondays is a recap of Saturday's ball games and a look into the analytical side of the game to see why certain things did or did not happen. And then on Thursdays, we give a preview. And this week, we will be giving you a preview of Old Dominion. And the Monarchs will be the Hoosiers' first opponent coming up this Saturday, 2:30 in Memorial Stadium. Fox Sports 1 will have the coverage on that. I hope everyone is doing well and ready for this holiday weekend that is upon us. And again, if you are joining us by YouTube or X or wherever that may be, we encourage you to ask any questions that you may have each and every time we're on in reference to a previous game or when we do our previews so that you can get your questions answered as much as possible during these times that we are in game mode. I'm back into my game mode as a coach. I miss it. I salivated today when I saw all the pressers on the TV and guys were jacked getting ready to play a game, and still got a lot of friends that are in the college football scene, and saw some of them on TV today, as a matter of fact. So anyway, put your questions into the chat box. We'll get to you at any point in time during the show. And today's show, because this is not really a recap of Saturdays, I hope you had a chance to watch the video that dropped sometime this morning. You can catch it on YouTube at thehoosier.com. On their webpage to get the link, or go to YouTube and search it. We did a roundtable with the writers of thehoosier.com, Zach Browning, and Drew Rosenberg, and Colin McMahon and I sat around and talked about this season specifically and gave 3 bold takes on Indiana's season this year, some predictions, some thoughts, who our thought of breakout player was going to be this year. And it's time for Any Way to Go, as my daughter has joined the show from Chicago, Illinois. Hello there, sweetie. And it's nice to see it be game week today. And I would be remiss because it is my father-in-law's birthday. He lives in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, down there close to, well, it's NC State territory and Duke territory and all that good stuff. It's his birthday today, so happy birthday to my father-in-law, Mr. Tony Martin. I appreciate him always checking us out here, as well on Thursdays with Jim Coyle, as he does listen to Jim on a quite many occasions outside of just me being there. So happy birthday, Tony. Wish you the best and hope everything is going well. But again, tonight we are going to focus in on all the things that we need to look at with this Indiana Hoosier team as we approach this game week this Saturday against Old Dominion. As of right now, I do not have a total of what we're looking at as it pertains to the crowds and stuff for Saturday. I'm assuming right now they have some tickets available. I do hope it's a sellout. We'll get and talk about that in a second. First thing I do want to do tonight is I want to talk about this show tonight is presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Basically, they like to give free assembly, free curbside pickup, and credit card service at Academy Sports and Outdoors. We carry all the gear you need from the top brands at all the prices you love. And now shopping at Academy is even more convenient than ever with our offer of free assembly on in-store purchases of most bikes, grills, plus free and easy curbside pickup on academy.com orders. Want to save even more every day? Open and use an Academy Sports and Outdoors credit card to get 5% of future purchases when you are approved. Save time, money at Academy Sports Outdoors, and have fun out there. And I saw that with tailgate being grills and stuff. Don't forget, here at the Hoosier Tailgate, on my link tree or in the description of this video, I do have different links to different items that you can purchase. One being Jackery, which is a really good brand for generators that you may need at your tailgate and things of that nature, as well as links to different opportunities with different grill companies, Louisiana Grill being one of them. You can look on there, get the discount, and go shop. We do get a little bit of a kickback to the Hoosier Tailgate. Of course, that all goes back into the production of this stuff each and every week. And then don't forget Fanatics. Fanatics is our #1 affiliate. And you can go to the link that I have on my link tree in my bio on X, or in the description right after you hit that subscribe and notify bell. But you can go there and get all your game day apparel, as there is a Hoosier Tailgate store there at Fanatics as well. You can get in there and get all of your different Indiana gear, and they have everything A to Z from head to toe. You can get it there and get it at a discount with some of the in-store coupons that they were running. They were running a 25% free shipping on some. So enough of that, and let's get ourselves moving along here. Today was Coach Sig's presser at Indiana, and I do want to kind of kick onto that here real quick to get a feel for Coach Cig, his mindset, where he feels the team is at. I know that he feels good about the health of the ball club, which means that's a good sign. But I wanted to get our own juices flowing tonight with him on his presser.
The Sun Belt teams, current members of the Sun Belt, and the Blue Bloods that they have defeated. It's a who's who in the top 15. And, last year, Old Dominion opened the season at South Carolina. Final score is 23-19. South Carolina beat them by 4. It's a hard place to play. I know that from being at Alabama. Old Dominion's got the lead with 6 minutes to go and has the ball, fumbles inside their own 10. Did it twice in the game. South Carolina's touchdown drives were 6 and 2 yards. I mean, they were extremely fortunate to beat Old Dominion. So all but one of Old Dominion's losses last year were by 1 score or less. And like I've told you in the past, I've beaten Virginia Tech twice in recent history. So we got to be ready to go. It's all about us and our preparation, having the right mindset, and going out there and playing our brand of ball with a bunch of new faces. Questions?
Yeah, Curt, you talked about kind of each of your teams having a unique identity and personality. Now that you had a kind of a full off season with this group and got to know them in the locker room, what do you like about them, and anything that makes them unique to other teams you've coached?
Well, I like where we're at coming out of camp in terms of how we practice, how we compete, and the identity is sort of established throughout the season once you start playing the games. And at the end of the year, we'll be able to write the book, close the book on this football team. Like I've said before, we've got a lot of nice pieces, got a lot of new guys. They'll be playing their first football for us. So, anxious to see how we respond and react, but it's my job to get us to play the way we're supposed to play. My job and the assistants, play in, play out till the game's over, from first play to last play.
Curt, I guess sort of a double-barrel question on just a healthier team. Do you feel good about where you are going into week one health-wise, and do you feel like you also had what you needed health-wise through fall camp to get healthy competition, that you had guys competing for spots without injuries affecting that 11 on 11, those settings were really productive?
Yeah, I feel really good about the health of our team right now going into the opener. During camp, we did have some guys in and out defensively at times, and one offensive lineman missed a little time, but it's healthy now. So overall, I'm pleased with where we're at.
Curt, one thing that so many guys said about Curtis Rourke last year was just how even-keeled he was as a leader, just not getting too high, not getting too low. I know you obviously aren't able to see how Fernando's going to handle big moments on the field at this point because he hasn't been out there yet. But what sorts of leadership qualities have you seen from him? How do the guys kind of rally around him?
Well, he's played a lot of football, so I've got a lot of confidence in him. And I think what you saw last season, as Curtis started to produce at a high level in the games, then his leadership and his status with his teammates. I've never made it a point to try to make the new quarterback the leader of the team. Our focus has always been on developing him, making him the best he can be, because you lead through your actions, and there's nothing like positive performance to establish yourself as a leader.
There's a take a little bit from Coach Cignetti this afternoon on his presser there. You can catch the full presser on YouTube, on the Indiana football page, or I could say the On3 page as well. They also have a version of that. And then if you want to catch it on TV, I'm sure the Big Ten Network will be running that as well at some point today. This evening, as it's game week and a lot of things are going on this week right now. So right now it's a good thing for Indiana football that they're coming out of camp in a healthy mode. And I think you can see the positive the positive mindset that Sig has coming into this year, and a more realistic approach to understanding that while they were 11-2 a year ago and a college football playoff team and accolades from A to Z, it's just like he said at his presser in Las Vegas during Big Ten Media Days: take down the pictures, take down all the accolades, get them all out, because that team accomplished that. This one has not accomplished anything yet. And that's a very, very true statement. His focus is on here and now and what's in front of him. He doesn't care what happened in the past, and he really doesn't care what happens in the future, because he says, be where your feet are. And that's a pretty good statement to carry on in everyone's life when you look at things and approach it on a daily basis. Be where your feet are, and one foot in front of the other. And that's the way he does approach his mindset with this football team, and has since he's been here. So again, good take there. We'll have more other media availability, of course, as we go through the season. Sig is very guarded. He really doesn't let his coordinators speak on Mondays or any other day, as well as the players, until after the game on Saturdays. So it's pretty much a one-man show for the rest of the year. And he's very guarded about that, because he is the voice of the program, and that's the way he learned it under Nick Saban, because Nick Saban's the same way when he was coaching. It was his voice and his voice only until after the game on Saturday. That's when they allowed the kids to get some of the questions from the writers to be out there on Saturdays. So, understandable, good mindset there from Coach Sig. Sold out crowd, we don't know yet. I have not heard. The last time I heard a couple of weeks ago, there was like 7,000-8,000 tickets still available for Saturday's game. Now, that's going to be dwindling, I think, as to the point where it may become a sellout at the appropriate time, and I hope it does, because there's a lot of things going on Saturday, from game day experience for the fans. You got the Bison returning as the head mascot for the Indiana Hoosiers as well. And then on top of that, you got a big game against Old Dominion. And like Sig likes to say, the crowd can be the 12th man. And they're going to need that help Saturday, because there's going to be a time in that ball game where a crowd that is filled to the brim at Memorial Stadium on First Merchants Field can make a difference. And I reference that because they gave him $50 million to do that. So again, I don't know where that is. I hope that you're able to attend it. And I understand if you're not able to, and we'll have all the coverage, including post-game show with Jim Coyle and myself at a time to be determined after the game, usually within an hour after the game. We're pretty much ready to go with that because all the media availability has been completed. But stay tuned for all that for Jim and his show and announcing all that when, where, and how. But we'll be at it and hopefully get you a very good post-game wrap-up Saturday against Old Dominion as well. Another thing is tonight going to do something a little different because we don't have anything to study on talk about from the game. Going to talk about a little bit football one-on-one. I had this suggestion by somebody I respect in his from his mindset. And one thing that he said is O-line, offensive line play and such. How are the gaps identified? And we're going to talk about gap identification and then incorporate that with inside zone and how that plays out in a mindset of the blocking scheme of the offensive line and how it's identified and what happens, here and there with a play like that. So a little bit of that as well tonight. We'll talk about and down the road here about gap identification and the inside zone run play. So you get a little bit idea for Saturday when you're looking at it from a perspective as a fan or somebody in the stadium. You understand what an A gap is, what a B gap is, and so forth and so on. So tonight we'll do a little bit of that, as well as talking about a sneak peek with Mr. Monarch Old Dominion. We're going to do that. And the first sneak peek we're going to get from that is going to be from the Old Dominion head coach, as he had his media availability today there in Virginia. So we're going to get over to that here and listen to their head coach.
And obviously it's changing from what it used to be, which is basketball school, into now, being just a athletic school.
Do you almost feel to some degree because of the transfer portal that guys may not be as phased as going into an environment like that because if they've had past experience maybe being a part of stuff like that?
Yeah, yes and no. Some guys have been there, some guys haven't. I think you're only as phased as your preparation. As long as we're giving them an environment where, we're making it pretty loud at practice and things like that. You're going to be really phased and daunted if you're not sure about your preparation going into it. If you feel pretty secure about your preparation, you'll be able to handle that. And I've always felt that way. It's just the guys who maybe they weren't quite confident on the game plan, or they weren't quite confident on some of those things, that those are going to be the issues.
Football-wise, what challenges does Indiana present?
Well, I think first and foremost, they're well coached. They're a well coached team, and I think that's a challenge because they've got a sound scheme and on both sides of the ball and on special teams. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges. Number two is they've got a bunch of guys who have played in big-time football games and been successful, and have played a lot of football. They have that too, and so defensively, they've got a very good defensive line. They've obviously got a middle linebacker who's put up some big-time numbers and is a good player, and they've got the one corner is an excellent player. The other one is that we think is going to play there. He's good too. He's a good player too. So they do a nice job of not playing a million defenses or a million calls, but executing well of what they do. And I think that execution is probably the biggest challenge that we're going to have in terms of a football, the football aspect of it.
That last time you went up against Coach Sig and Harrisonburg was so good, right? That was a back and forth game. When you look at this time around, obviously different team, different personnel for him and for you, but when the coaching matchups, kind of break that down for me, do you go into that with a different approach now that he's in Indiana?
I mean, I think the one thing you were able to see from last year is that, he has a way that he wants to do things. He has, both offensively and defensively. And did it look exactly the same as it did at JMU? No, it didn't, because he had different players. But the overall feel of it was the same. And that's, that's how he was raised in this coaching profession, not only from how he's actually raised, but also, from Coach Saban and things like that of, you have philosophies and there's some unbending things in there that you're going to have, and I think he has those, and then you have to adjust to the personnel that you have, and he over time he's done a great job with that, particularly at the quarterback position. It's looked differently with the quarterbacks, but at the same time you can still see that it's the same overall offensive scheme and offensive philosophy.
You guys. Head coach there at Old Dominion, and had his presser there today as well, and hope that came through all right. Sometimes it gets a little wonky when you're bringing video in from these outside sources and stuff, but Ricky Rainey, I believe, is the name of the head coach there at Old Dominion. He has a tie-in to Big Ten football, not just Sig in the Sun Belt having played there, but Big Ten football, as he was a quarterback coach and I believe an OC at one time at Penn State. So he's very fully aware of what he's walking into in Bloomington. And the one thing I wasn't able to get to there, and I may have got it too far ahead, he was talking about the stadium environment being a little bit louder and than his days at Penn State, and basically referencing the crowd size wasn't always a major issue. He feels that is going to be different on Saturday, as well as he talked about the end zone where they would have in the old days, not the old days, but a few years ago, where they would have kids playing football because they had a field laid out there. And he was talking about sometimes a ball would come on the field. Well, I got news for Ricky. That's long gone, buddy. It's a full bowl stadium now, so you won't have to worry about that. So, these pressers can be interesting a little bit about how they handle themselves. And there was an interesting part there. He knows Aiden Fisher's name and D'Angelo Ponza's name because he played against them there at JMU when he was, Old Dominion played. So in some respects, I don't want to say he slighted them, but he knew who those kids were playing at corner and his middle linebacker. So don't buy the I guess you could say ignorance in some respects that he didn't know who those players are and what their names were, because that in itself, I think what he's trying to do there is show it's just another team. He can say, yeah, they got a good corner and another good corner and a good linebacker and so forth and so on. He's not putting a name to it like he's overly study it, but it's just a little bit of a tactic that coaches uses to, lessen the attention to who's across from you on Saturday. And that's just the way it is. Jason said, yeah, his son used to play on it. Yeah, I know there was a lot of, when my son was playing there, that football for Indiana, that was always going on in that end zone. And I'm sure when the it became enclosed, it was quite a disappointment in some respects because of that being now not available for the youngsters to get out and run around out there like they had in the past. But again, giving you a little tidbit there about the head coach there at Old Dominion. Very good coach, young program in the sense that Old Dominion just added football back maybe about 10, 12 years ago. And so in terms of its, Division I group of 5 tenure, it's very new in that regard. So I think he's the second head coach maybe that has came in to take over there. And, he's got good players. He's got some really good players that we're going to talk about on Thursday. And we'll talk more in depth about that. And you got Sig's approach to it as well and who this team has gone up against in the past. And even with this coaching staff and what they've been able to do to teams like Virginia Tech and some of the other ones that he listed there, especially that South Carolina game last year. So this is not going to be a walk in the park. And anybody that thinks it is, I'm going to tell you, you're going to be sorely disappointed, I think, because I do think this Old Dominion team is going to bring their A game. Indiana is no longer an under the radar team. They're going to come from Virginia with their bows and arrows because Indiana has a big bullseye on their chest. So, they got some legit players now. And I'm telling you, the quarterback is a good player. The Mike linebacker can get it done. And I think Sig said, I think he led the nation in tackles a year ago. And then they've got a legit running back. And in that intro that I show you, that interception by Alsbury, where did he come from? Old Dominion. So that head coach may not be too fond of Sig from taking his best player a year ago. So they're going to be fired up and ready to go. And that is correct, Jason. They are a good team. And this is not going to be a walk in the park, hi-fi at halftime type. I hope it is. I mean, I hope Indiana rolls and their offense is rolling and the defense is going and special teams is setting up both sides of the ball. And you got that complementary playing going on between the offense and defense, playing that game where both offense and defense complement each other. And we'll talk about what some things to be aware of on a first game type of deal, irregardless of how many guys have played a game. The first games are games where you get a lot of bad mistakes. Sometimes you get some very costly penalties at times. You get special teams play that may not be up to snuff. And, these are the things that you have to be guarded against. And this staff they'll have them down ready to roll when it's said, ready to go with everything. So, last year, again, just to touch base on it and let it be what it is, 11-2, the trajectory of the program is very upward. There's no question about that. I do think the perception of Indiana football has changed. Now, has it changed to the point where it's more going to be seen on a national level? Probably not quite yet. But I do think they're changed a lot of people, and they would not have been in the press for the last 3 weeks or so about schedules and, the SEC debate and things of that nature. And then on top of that, talking about lame schedules and stuff. But, again, this is a year, last year was definitely that Cinderella season, and Indiana had a great year, but it's over and gone, and it's back to 0-0. And it's going to be one of those things that Indiana will be prepared on Saturday. And I do believe they'll be prepared. And I hope the crowd's prepared to come and be that 12th man that Sig always wants and needs on a Saturday afternoon in Bloomington. And I know it's a holiday weekend, but you're talking one day and you got 3 of them, or if not some cases, 4 of them to get, down there to Bloomington and have a great time at a tailgate and go see the game and have fun there in Bloomington on Saturday. But I do believe this team will be prepared, and we'll get into that on Thursday a little bit more in depth when we can talk about it with what to expect from this team. They're too deep. top players, what they have, and things of that nature, so that you have an idea heading into the game on Saturday. And you can re-listen to the podcast. You know, if you're driving down to Bloomington, get onto Spotify, pick up the podcast and listen and re-listen. Talk, you know, listen to the 3 bold predictions as the roundtable, or this one, or the Thursday podcast that you can listen on the way down to Bloomington, or play it there when you're in the tailgate area. I'd appreciate that as well. But try to get you a little prepared as a fan to understand what is going on in the building right now, A to Z. How is it prepared, the practice routine, and what it all takes to get everything into a nice little bow, so that when you kick off on Saturday, everybody's on the same page. You understand the objectives and the standard that you need to have to go win a ball game against an opponent from a group of 5 team that's going to come in here and trying to ruin Indiana's party. And that's all they need. That's all that needs to be said there in that regard. But we went through the schedule. We put up what they had a year ago in that regard. You know, this is a team that last year, we talked about, what they had on the, they were a 5-7 ball club over y'all, 4-4 in the conference. So 500 there. They lose by 4 to South Carolina. They lose by 6 to East Carolina. That was actually in Norfolk, where Old Dominion's at there. And then Virginia Tech beat them by 20. So then they went to Bowling Green last year, beat Bowling Green, who had a pretty decent year last year, 30-27 on the road in Bowling Green, Ohio. And then when they got in the Sun Belt, it's a tight one to Coastal. Another they won a good one against Georgia State by 7. They beat Texas State by 10. Lost to a really good won against Northern Southern in a very dignified fashion. App State beat them by 8. James Madison beat them by 3. They lost to Marshall by 7. And they beat Arkansas State by 8. So you can see their games, for the most part, with the exception of Virginia Tech last year, were all practically one score games, really close games, irregardless of who they're playing. So they'll be ready, even though their record was 5-7 a year ago. They're going to come here ready with a great group of players on both sides of the ball and a good coaching staff that'll have them prepared. And so we'll get into that a little bit more on Thursday, as well as what I believe the keys to victory will be and things of that nature, so that you'll know A to Z, kind of a scouting report per se of Old Dominion and what to expect from Indiana week 1. And from that perspective, offensively and defensively. So we'll talk about that a little bit on Thursday at 7:30 right here on the Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com. All the links and stuff will be available on Twitter as well as other platforms. So grab a friend, tell them to join you for the tailgate on Thursday at 7:30. We're going to step out here and hear from BetUS as we get ready for all the college football betting.
Hoosier Football Tailgate is sponsored by BetUS. Use promo code TAILGATE and receive a 125% bonus added to your first deposit. BetUS is where the game starts.
Welcome back to the Hoosier Tailgate here. And also wanted to say that when we give you the odds on Saturday, for the games, and what I try to do on Saturday is give out the game schedules, as well as the odds of the games, overs and unders, spreads, and things of that nature. So you have a basis of what to think and what the odds are at the time on Thursday. Right now, Indiana is a 22-point favorite, I believe, right now against East Carolina, against Old Dominion. So we'll see where if that line stays, gets better, gets higher, gets lower. I think 22s. I think it's a pretty. I think that's a little bit high in my opinion. But I'm not in Vegas, and those guys know what the heck they're talking about it. And we're right there with you, Mr. Steer. Appreciate you joining us here this evening. And I know that everyone that's in here is excited too for Saturday afternoon at 2:30 in Bloomington. But we'll talk a little bit about that because BetMGM Sportsbook is a part of the On3 network as well. And so when we give out the odds, we'll give it out here on the tailgate as well. And you'll have an idea of what all is available there at BetMGM Sportsbook. We're going to head in here to our little diagram for this evening. And I hope everybody can see this in a pretty good fashion. But what we got here is just a basic formation that you may see. And hopefully, I don't know if I've got a pointer or not, or if it's showing up as, what it is there. But this is one of those things where you can see that from the tight ends to the right there. And so from right to left, you got a tight end, the right tackle, the right guard, the center is fully colored in. Then to the left of him is the left guard, left tackle. The whiteout split to the left there on the hash is what we would refer to as the slot receiver, or I call it the H receiver. And then at the top of the numbers there to the left, that's what we call the X receiver in this equation. And then we have on the top of the numbers there to the far right, what we call the Z receiver. So everybody gets an idea there of, the position groups that we would identify that as a identification of the offensive line and so forth and so on. And I'm trying to see if I can pull up my pencil stuff, and I don't know if I can or not, so I can scribble on this, but I don't think I will be because it's not doing what I want it to do. But anyway, we'll have to suffer through me talking about it. So if you have a question about this, let me know in the chat box, and then we can get through this and go from there on it. But when you look at this aspect, and I just talked about it, everything in how I would letter it, and usually what everybody does here is, of course, you got the A gap, B gap is the A gap is between the center and the guards on both sides. The B gap is between the guard and tackle. The C gap is between the tackle and tight end, or on the left side, because there's no one out there, that's just an edge rusher, but it's still identified as the C gap on an open end. And then with the tight end attached, like he is in this formation, that's what we would refer to the D gap. So when people are talking, O-line are talking, or the they play, when they conversations with Coach Bobstead, that's how they would communicate. And then they also have different shades that I can go over at another time. What is a 3-eye or a 4-eye or a 5, or what is a 7 or a 9? And we can get into that a little bit later. But anyway, the gaps are very important because that's also how they label guys that are blitzing. So if you have a backer coming from inside the box, they're going to call, if he comes in the A gap, they're going to say a backer came A or B or C or whatever, and that makes a huge difference in pass protection as well. But that gives you an idea of how they communicate those gaps and what letters are assigned to them. It's not complicated. It's very simplistic, but when you're communicating, whether it's the guys on the field or the coach on the sideline, everybody's got to be on the same page and understand those gaps. Wide receiver wise, when you look at their splits in the middle of the field, what these guys are taught, especially Z and X, if the ball's in the middle of the field, you're going to see these guys be about the top of the numbers. So, and then the wideout, and that's the guy in the slot here to the left on the hash, he would split the difference between the X receiver by the 20 and the nearest man on line, which is the tackle, and that would put him about the hash marks in some respects. And then if you shifted this whole formation, let's say all the way to the left, and it was on the left hash, this wide receiver in the boundary is taught when the ball's nearest you on the hash, your splits are 2 yards from the boundary. So he would be somewhere between the 20 and the there. And same thing would hold true with him in terms of lining up with a splitting the difference. It'll be a little tighter because you're in the boundary. And then if this ball was on the left hash, this wideout, the Z that's out here by the 20-yard line, he would cheat all the way in to 2 yards outside the hash on his alignment. So there's some alignment things that they're all communicating and understanding, and it's important that they're in the correct alignments for the different plays and such. So that's kind of that for tonight. Then if you look at this drawing here, and since I can't draw on it, I guess I'll have to explain it out loud. This is a inside zone concept. We're going to run inside zone to the right. I do not know how they number it, but when I was coaching, the tailback was always the two back, and we would say, what hole were we essentially aiming for? You know, is it a tight zone or is it a little wider inside zone? And that makes a difference to which hole that we were talking about. So in the offensive linemen's minds, when we hear zone, and I'm breaking it down to the real simplest of terms, and this is zone right, essentially each blocker up front is responsible for the nearest gap to the play side. So if we're running inside zone for the right, the center has the A gap, the guard would have the B gap, the tight end and tackle would combo and work some type of double team in the C gap with the tight end's eyes outside in case this nickel back would come off the edge. So you get them all working in one direction, and then between the center and guard on the play side, one will work to the next level and take the most dangerous defender or off-color jersey, as would the tight end and tackle. One would work for the next level, hand the block to the guy that's more likely to take him at the point of attack, and then get that push and push him to the next level and come off for the nearest threat. Backside, you're working a double team between the left guard and left tackle on the nose. And then again, they're pushing, and one is going to come up on once they get depth and block the nearest threat, which would probably be the will. The end is unblocked, and that would be the read the quarterback would make on that end. If he sees the end's numbers that he can read it, he can hand it off. If he reads if those numbers disappear, like that end comes peeling down the line of scrimmage, that's when you get a pull. And the corners in the X out here has got a blocking assignment with that. So that is the concept of why gaps are identified and how the inside zone came to be in terms of blocking it with a mindset of gap responsibility. Now, that is a very simplistic twist on the inside zone. You know, there's a lot of different things that go into it other than just, hey, you got A gap, B gap, C gap. You know, it's a little bit more than that. But it gives you an idea of watching a game, and if they run inside zone and somebody comes off the A gap and makes the play, then you know there's a problem between the center and right guard. You know, we have you have the advantage of a TV game of seeing it pretty realistically, and then in the stadium you can quite see it sometimes on the scoreboard when they replay the play. And if you see a guy that's making the play in the A gap, you know, between the guard and the center, there's a problem there. And so that would be something that the assistant coaches would noted Coach Bobstead. So when they came over to the sideline, he can go back in that play because they now can watch video on the sideline in a game. And then they're able to take that and teach there on the sideline of what they need to do in that regard. So it's a great thing in that regard. That's one of those things that gives you a little bit of an idea of what is a gap, how is it identified, and how does that identification come into play when you're running a run play. And same thing would happen if you're running a pass play, because you'd have different responsibilities based on a pass call, and it all goes based upon those gaps. For the most point, that's the starting point. It's going to evolve from there, but that's where it starts so that you have a basic understanding of how things operate. And that's the same way that the coaches would teach it, simplistically and teaching it, walking through it, and then advancing it once they get going into different fronts and different twists and things of that nature. And that's why identification and understanding that everybody's on the same page in that regard makes a big difference when it comes to play design and how they handle it on the game day. And you get a guy like Roman Hemby, who's going to be carrying the ball for the Hoosiers, as well as Black. What those guys are taught, they're reading that responsibility up front. And when they make a cut on inside zone, you don't want to make a cut where you're trying to bounce it all the way outside on inside zone, because the offensive linemen are understanding, hey, he's inside. I don't want him to bounce. If he goes outside and he's on his own, I mean, he's going to get tackled and maybe for a loss. So their aim point on inside zone is the near foot of the right guard or the outside of the A gap in teaching. And that's why you see those guys a little bit square, because they're trying to hit it vertically. And then if it was a little bit of what we call a wide zone or inside zone, heading for what we would call the B gap, they would shoot, aim point would be outside foot of the guard in the B gap, because that's where the gap is. And then they play ball from there. But you're looking for straight vertical cuts. You get what you can call a jump cut. And we can maybe I may be able to pull some videos of that as we get going here, if you want to look at that specifically. So if there's something you would like for me to do illustrated wise, and I can work on my pen. I used to have one. I don't know where it's at, but if there are something that you want to see about a specific play or a specific pass play or run play, just put it in the comments section. I look at the comments, try to also engage and work with people that comment during the broadcast. But if there is something that you would have a question about, how do you do this or how do you do that, let me know. I'll pull some things that I have, and maybe I can help you understand it better and go from there with that aspect of it. But I appreciate you doing that. And those are the type of things. My man, I love you, brother. You're the one that gave me the idea. So about bringing in some of this football one-on-one. So I appreciate you in that regard. And what he was asking there, does Indiana have the line that can compete in some of the bigger games this year? Anxious to see them against Illinois. They will blitz us a lot. You're going to see that against Old Dominion Saturday, because Old Dominion runs what we call the stack defense, or some call the 3-3 stack. And you got 3 down linemen, 3 backers stack, and they do a lot of different blitzing from that on every down in some respects. Remember last year against Nebraska, that was their main defense, was the stack defense, because Tony White was the DC. In that game, he had no answers for Indiana. Indiana had all the answers. He was always wrong in his calls. And Curtis Rourke had a great day until he ripped his, fingernail off. But Old Dominion is going to be similar to what Nebraska would like to do, and that's bring pressure on any down and every down, whether it's a 5-man blitz or looking like it's a 5-man and fire zoning it and playing 3, a zone behind it, or truly going man and trying to get extra guys in the box. So we'll have that in the terminology aspects on Thursday. But yes, to answer your question, my man, I do think they have the offensive line this year to compete against anyone and everyone better than a year ago in some respects. We'll see in games like Illinois, like you pointed out, Oregon, who's going to have a beast of a defense. And then, of course, Penn State, who's going to have a really good defense. So we'll get an idea real quick on Indiana's offensive line as we head into week 1 and prepare for week 4. And that will tell us a lot. And that's why I said that stretch of Illinois, Iowa, and Oregon will have a very defining outlook on the season in a lot of different aspects, personnel being one of them. So I do think they have the personnel to stack up against the likes of the Illinois and the Iowas and the Oregons of the world this year, as opposed to last year where they struggled against Michigan in the second half. Ohio State was a complete debacle. And then Notre Dame, as Sig even said, they just didn't have the right approach that game. And it showed when Notre Dame kind of dominated them a lot of time in that game. So I do believe they have those guys. We'll find out because Old Dominion will have some guys in there as well that will be P4 caliber guys. And we're going to find out real quick. But I do think with Coogan, Evans being back, you got Benson coming back. I don't know if he'll be a starter, but he'll play. The kid from Ohio State, Zinn, at tackle. And, of course, Carter Smith, what can you say about his job at offensive tackle? He's gone against Kamara for the better part of all fall camp. So he's going to be ready because of Kamara's ability on and off the field when it comes to playing at a high rate of speed and stuff. Whoa. I don't know what happened there. Hold on here. Something happened. I apologize.
And picked off. Up the sideline.
and I am muted. Again, it's been a crazy day. I'm sorry. But what I was trying to say with the ask about Carter Smith is that, yes, he is probably going to be an NFL type of caliber player. No question about it. As well as we've seen what Coach Bobstead has done with all the offensive lines he's had. This is his best one. And as a group, I think it's his best group he's had under his tutelage this year. But when you look at this depth chart over, what they have coming back and what they've added via the portal, and maybe a freshman mixed in the mix too, like a Baldwin, I do think on defense, they have a better 11 in total. I do think Hardy's going to be a guy at linebacker that I think will fairly complement what Walker did and brought to the table a year ago. I just think he's one of those guys that he's got speed. He plays smart. He reads things well. And coupling him with Aiden, I do think he'll be in a good spot there. I'm excited about the Wyatt kid that transferred in from Maryland. I do think that's a big-time get for Indiana on defense. Stephen Daly, Hosa Wheeler, Radcliffe. You got Tucker back as well on that front. So you talk about guys there, not even including the guys in the secondary. Farrell, Pons, the Gandys of the world, and, Knighton, the kid from Northern Illinois. Yeah, I believe that too, Jason. Most depth they've ever had in quite a few years. But the only question mark going into this game, and it was asked later in the conference today of SIG, was the status of Lewis Moore, because his final appeal or hearing is set for this week. Matter of fact, it's set for Thursday. That puts Indiana in a bind because, in retrospect, when you look at it, even though there's a high probability that it will end in his favor, listening to some of the experts, there have been other cases that have gone in throughout the country in the last 2 weeks where the courts have sided with the NCAA when it comes to this. And so once precedence is set, these judges have a tendency to look at those cases and determine whether that applies to the case that they have. So Indiana has to go into this game Saturday with the mindset that he may not be available. And you got to get the guy that's going to play behind him ready. And I'm not so sure right now. Lewis is a great player. He can be thrown in a heartbeat if things are okay with the NCAA. But I would think this week they're probably repping the person that has to be in a position to potentially start Saturday if things go wrong Thursday. Keep your fingers crossed, say a prayer. I hope for Moore's, his situation, I hope for it, that he's able to play and he gets that year, and all things said, he's ready to roll. But the depth they have will be able to handle that on all fronts. No question about it this year. So that, that is something there. But again, I was talking about Hemby. Henderson, BB will be off there. Black, you got Black back there. So those three guys will get chances to show what they can do. They'll even up their reps and things of that nature to really get a feel. But I'm anxious to see Hemby. I'm anxious to see BB, because those guys are guys that can catch the ball in the backfield, as well as Black, to see what Shanahan does there in that regard. And then, of course, we know what the wideout group room has got with Surratt and Cooper. And I think EJ Williams, and we need to have that kid has to have a year. Indiana, he needs to have a year because he's so talented. If he can stay out of the training room and on the field, it makes Indiana's wide receiver group that much better, because he's a tough matchup. He's a tough matchup on the outside, and he's legit a big time player. So hopefully he stays healthy, but I do believe Indiana has the depth, behind those guys. So you're going to see a pretty good rotation at receiver on Saturday as well, because they've got the depth there to do it. Tight end will be interesting. You got Stays and I'm blanking on the kid at Wisconsin. Those two guys will probably get even snaps. We'll probably see some 2 tight end sets at times. Kind of a robust backfield in some situations if we need it on the goal line or in short yardage situations. So we'll talk about that on Thursday. We'll talk about the depth chart of both teams, Old Dominion and Indiana, the matchups that could occur, and a little bit of film breakdown potentially of what Old Dominion will bring in to Bloomington on Saturday afternoon at 2:30. Well, I want to thank you for being with me here tonight on our Monday edition of the Hoosier Football Tailgate on thehoosier.com. We'll be here each and every week throughout the season on Monday nights. Bring your questions. I'll have your answers. And if you want to see something specifically, by all means, make a suggestion down there in the comments section, and we can get it answered here and there. That's the one thing that I want to be fully transparent with you guys. If you got a question, by God, ask it, and I'll try to have an answer for you, and we'll go about that way. Yes, I think Bamba's going to be in a position to play. He's always as valuable as that. And then, of course, Omar with the slot is a definite game breaker for Indiana as well. So it's going to be interesting, but we'll have a total breakdown on Thursday night here at 7:30 on the Hoosier Football Tailgate. Till then, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. Until Thursday night, 7:30, this is the Hoosier Football Tailgate right here on thehoosier.com. Good night, everybody.